What makes an anime perfect? Is it the story, the characters, the animation, or that indescribable feeling that pulls you into its world and refuses to let go? Today, we're looking at 16 unforgettable anime that are guaranteed to leave a mark on anyone that watches them. Frieren is one of those anime that feels almost effortless in how powerful it is. On the surface, it's a fantasy story about an elf mage traveling the world, but that's never really what it's about. What Frieren actually explores is time. Specifically how differently time is experienced when you outlive everyone you care about. Instead of focusing on grand battles or high stakes conflict, the series slows down and lets moments linger. Small conversations, quiet memories, and mundane journeys carry enormous emotional weight. You begin to understand that the real tragedy isn't loss itself, but realizing too late how much something mattered to you. Frieren doesn't try to impress you with spectacle, it trusts that reflection, restraint, and emotional honesty are enough. And for a lot of viewers, that restraint is exactly what makes it unforgettable. Attack on Titan's greatest achievement isn't its action, it's its transformation. What begins as a straightforward survival story about humanity versus monsters gradually evolves into something far more complex. Over time, the series shifts its focus towards freedom, power, and the cost of pursuing either of them. As the perspective change, so do the questions the show asks. Heroes become morally ambiguous, enemies become humanized, and the line between right and wrong starts to blur. This evolution feels intentional, not sudden, which is why it hits you so hard. Attack on Titan doesn't ask you to cheer blindly, it asks you to think about cycles of violence, inherited hatred, and whether true freedom can exist without consequence. Few anime attempt this scale of thematic ambition, and fewer commit to it all the way through. Unlike the game, Cyberpunk Edgerunners was critically acclaimed from the start. Edgerunners is proof that length has nothing to do with impact. In a relatively short runtime, it delivers a complete emotionally devastating story that feels fully realized from start to finish. The world of Night City is loud, chaotic, and visually overwhelming, but at its core, the story is deeply personal. The series focuses on people trying to survive in a system that was never designed for them to win. Dreams feel tangible at first, then slowly slip away as the reality of the world sets in. The pacing is sharp, the animation is extremely expressive, and the emotional beats land with brutal precision. Edgerunners doesn't over-explain, it moves forward relentlessly, just like the world it depicts, and that inevitability is what makes the ending hit as hard as it does. Your Name works because it understands balance. It blends romance, science fiction, and drama without letting any one element overpower the others. The premise is immediately engaging, but what keeps people invested is the emotional sincerity behind it. The film captures the feeling of connection to someone you've never met, a familiarity that doesn't make logical sense but feels completely real. Combined with breathtaking animation and careful pacing, every moment feels purposeful. What makes Your Name endure isn't just how beautiful it looks, but how universal its emotions are. It's about distance, missed chances, and the hope that some connections are strong enough to transcend time itself. Death Note remains iconic because it understands escalation. The premise is simple, but the execution constantly raises the stakes. Every decision leads to a counter decision, every victory invites a new challenge. Watching the psychological battle unfold is what makes the series so compelling. Beyond the mind games, Death Note forces viewers to confront uncomfortable questions about justice and morality. Is the problem the power itself, or the person who wields it? The show never gives an easy answer, which is why discussions around it persists almost 2 decades later. Monster is a slow burn in the purest sense of the term. It doesn't rush, it doesn't shock for the sake of attention, and it never underestimates its audience. Instead, it builds unease gradually through realism and psychological depth. The story revolves around choice, specifically how one decision can ripple outward and affect countless lives. The antagonist isn't defined by spectacle, but by ideology, making him far more unsettling than a typical villain. Monster asks difficult questions about responsibility, evil, and whether taking a life can ever truly be justified, even if that life belongs to a monster. What makes it so effective is how grounded everything feels. There's no supernatural shortcuts, no exaggerated theatrics. Every action has weight and every character feels painfully human. Monster doesn't try to entertain you quickly, it earns your attention slowly, and once it has it, it never lets go. Made in Abyss is deceptive in the most dangerous way possible. Its art style suggests wonder and innocence, but the deeper you go, the more that illusion collapses. What begins as a story about curiosity and adventure gradually reveals itself to be about suffering, obsession, and the cost of pursuing the unknown. The Abyss itself feels alive, beautiful, cruel, and indifferent. Every layer strips something away from the characters, whether it's their safety, their morality, or even their humanity. The contrast between the visuals and the subject matter makes the emotional impact even stronger. Made in Abyss isn't shocking just to shock you, it's unsettling because it feels honest about what exploration would actually demand. Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood succeeds because it understands structure. Every plot thread, every character arc, and every theme is carefully layered and paid off. Nothing feels wasted and nothing feels rushed. At its core, the story is about consequence, the idea that every action has a cost, and shortcuts always demand something in return. The series balances political intrigue, philosophy, action, and emotion without losing focus. What truly elevates it is its commitment to hope. Even in its darkest moments, Brotherhood believes in growth, redemption, and the idea that people can choose to do better, which is why the series remains so widely respected. Steins Gate is a masterclass in patience. It takes its time setting up characters and tone, often appearing light-hearted or even chaotic at first. But once the shift happens, everything you've already seen gains new meaning. The story explores time travel not as a power fantasy, but as a burden. Every attempt to fix the past creates new consequences, and every solution demands sacrifice. The emotional weight builds gradually until it becomes overwhelming. Steins Gate doesn't rely on complexity alone, its strength comes from how deeply personal the stakes become, turning abstract science into something intensely human. Owarimonogatari represents the culmination of everything the Monogatari series has been building towards. Rather than focusing on external conflict, it turns inward, forcing characters to confront truths they've been avoiding about themselves. Dialogue becomes the battlefield and self-reflection becomes the challenge. The series strips away excuses and illusions, leaving only accountability and acceptance. Every conversation feels intentional, every revelation earned. Owarimonogatari isn't flashy by conventional standards, but its emotional precision is unmatched. It understands that the hardest battles aren't against monsters, but against yourself. And in my opinion, this is the best one on the list. Neon Genesis Evangelion isn't interested in comfort. It uses the framework of a mecha anime to explore depression, identity, and the fear of connection. As the story progresses, the external threats matter less than the internal ones. Characters are fragile, contradictory, and deeply flawed. Their struggles aren't symbolic, they're painfully recognizable. The series gradually abandons their traditional narrative structure in favor of raw, psychological exploration. Evangelion doesn't give you clear answers, and it doesn't try to. Its impact comes from how honestly it portrays emotional isolation and the difficulty of understanding yourself. Clannad Afterstory is about what happens after the story you usually see end. It shifts the focus away from youthful romance and toward adulthood, responsibility, and loss. The emotional weight doesn't come from sudden tragedy but from accumulation. Moments that seem small at first grow heavier over time. The series shows how fragile happiness can be and how devastating it is when it's taken away. But it also believes in perseverance, in finding meaning even after everything falls apart. Afterstory doesn't just make people cry, it changes how they think about family, love, and time. Hunter x Hunter constantly defies expectations. What begins as a lighthearted adventure slowly evolves into something darker and more morally complex. The series isn't afraid to let arcs linger or to let characters fail in uncomfortable ways. Power in Hunter x Hunter isn't just about strength, it's about intention, intelligence, and sacrifice. The world feels vast and unpredictable, and no character is truly safe from consequence. The series trusts its audience to keep up, and rewards that trust with some of the most thoughtful storytelling in the medium. Fruits Basket is a story about healing. Beneath its supernatural premise lies a deeply emotional exploration of trauma, abuse, and self-worth. Each character carries wounds that aren't easily fixed, and the series never pretends they are. What makes Fruits Basket special is its empathy. It doesn't rush forgiveness or resolution. It always allows people to be hurt, to be flawed, and to slowly find their way forward. The emotional payoff comes not from grand moments, but from quiet breakthroughs, when someone finally believes they deserve happiness. Gurren Lagann is unapologetically loud, emotional, and sincere. It starts as pure hype, but gradually reveals a surprisingly thoughtful core about belief, legacy, and pushing beyond limitation. The series thrives on momentum. Every arc builds on the last, constantly escalating both the scale and the emotional stakes. What begins as simple determination evolves into something almost philosophical. Gurren Lagann believes in forward motion, even in the face of loss. and that belief is what gives it its enduring power. JoJo's bizarre adventure is impossible to replicate. Every part reinvents itself, changing tone, style, and structure, while still feeling unmistakably JoJo. What ties it all together is creativity without restraint. The series embraces absurdity, but beneath that is an incredible attention to strategy and thematic continuity. Battles aren't won through brute force alone, but through ingenuity and understanding. JoJo's isn't just influential, it's foundational. Its willingness to be bold, strange, and unapologetically itself has shaped anime culture in ways few series ever could. These anime aren't perfect because they appeal to everyone, well, to be honest, some of them do. But most of all, they're perfect because they fully commit to what they're trying to be. And that commitment is what separates something memorable from something timeless.